Hi everyone, this is Man Code. In our last video, we have discussed IOptions pattern, how to use that to read configurations from appSettings.json file. And those videos are available inside a separate playlist. You can go and watch. Today's video will be one step further on top of IOptions pattern, and with IOptions pattern we further have two different ways to read configuration from config file. And before explaining to those two different classes, let me give you an example why we will need those and give you a scenario. So I have modified this last program in a way that it will keep running and will keep pulling the instances from the service provider and will calling those methods. And by the way, this is the way to pull the services from service provider, especially when we are using inside main method. And yeah, so let's see next the scenario. Let me run this program. You can see that it's running. So with each loop we are getting two values coming from test class, and through IOptions pattern I am not getting its value, the line we wrote in last video. So let's say this program is running and this is a some service, and we want to change some configuration without closing that program. How is that possible? So before that, let me go to the location of that file. So this is a debug folder from where the configuration are getting read, and let's say we want to change some configuration, and instead of its value, let's say I change its values are and hit control S. There is no change here in the program because program was running, is currently running. Those values will be effective only once we rerun the program. Oh, let me close this one and run this program again. Now we can see that it's picking the updated value. Its values are right. So this is how IOption pattern works. So we have to restart the application to get the latest values from the configuration. But what if we don't want to restart or close current running program? How we can get those values, the updated values from the config? So these are the two different options we can use further to read the latest values from the configuration without restarting the program. It could be a console application, WinForm, WPF, web application, web API, whatever kind of application is that. It's applicable to all different kind of applications. So for that one, we have two different options. First one is IOptionsSnapshot, and the other one is IOptionMonitor. So these are the two different options. When we use IOptionSnapshot, when the service type is scoped or transient, and when we want to use IOptionsMonitor, when the service type is singleton. Right, so in both scoped and transient case we should use IOptionSnapshot, and in case of singleton, when there is even the instance remains same, we need to use IOptionsMonitor. Let's try both with an example. I already have created services folder. Inside services, let me create a file. Let's name it service A and service B, public class service B. So I have created two different classes, and we will start with IOptions snapshot. And let me reuse this code from here, and I will update it. Okay, and that would be service A, that's fine. Snapshot pattern, and that would be service B, like this. And inside service A, we will be using IOptionSnapshot to get those values from the config file. And inside the service B, we will be using IOptionsMonitor. And with IOptionsMonitor, the value doesn't work. It will use with current value. Okay, so we have both of these services available now, and let's now register those inside program.cs file. For this one, I will be first of all add transient. The first case we discussed, that would be for service A, and dot add singleton, and that would be for service B. Okay, both of the services are registered, and now let's create the instance of service 1 first, and that would be of iSnapshot. So let me reuse this one here. And for now, for some time, let me comment these two lines just to see the results. And before that, I will be creating or pulling the service A. Service A is equal to scope dot service provider dot get service, and that will be service A. All right, and yeah, let me create an instance of service B as well. I will use it later, but for now, let me create that one once as well. Scope dot service provider dot get service is B. All right, both the instance are available now. Let's you start with service A. Service A dot read. Okay, and what was the read from within A? Through IOptionsSnapshot pattern. Okay, and the B we should say OptionsMonitor pattern. All right, let's go back and run the application and see how it works. So it's running now, and through IOptions pattern, I am now getting its value, and we have that config file opened. So let me try to change it without restarting the program. Its value is updated, and let me press Control, and before that let me scroll down a bit, Control S, and you can see as soon as I updated the file without restarting the program, now it's getting the latest value from that config. This is how the IOptionsSnapshot is used, where we don't want to restart our application and the instance type is of transient or scoped. It will also work with scoped, so let's try that as well. Add scoped like this, and let me restart its value, and again let me enter Control S. Now it's getting the latest value without rebooting or restarting the program. So that was the example of iSnapshot option. Next example is around iSnapshotMonitor. For that one, let me cut this one from here, and just to rearrange few things, let me move those comments above, and here I can say service b dot read. All right, and let me run this program through IOptionMonitor pattern. I am now getting its value. Good, and let me try to change it. Control S, nothing has happened. So this is expected. It will not pick those changes directly because we know that the instance is singleton, which means once instance is created, which is already created as soon as we launch the application, it will not change, which means there should be some mechanism or some event, some callback, which should keep listening to that config file. For that one, we already have a mechanism within that IOptionsMonitor. So let's jump back to service P, and in service P we have to listen an event, and that is options dot on change. We have to listen to that event and new value, and the second option is of old, right? And we will be using that event to get the latest value. So we have registered that on change, and as soon as we do any changes in app settings.json, that will be triggered and we will have a latest value of this test option object. And what we have to do is new value will be equal to test option. So we will be assigning our test option object to a new value. So only that change is required, and we can close this one and rerun the application once. Okay, it's now running, and now try to change its value options, and let me press Control S. Now you can see that new value is coming in the console application without restarting the application. So these are the two variations which are used in different scenarios where we don't want to close or restart our application. It could be web API, web application, or console application, something running in the background kind of thing. like email services, log services, file processing, anything that is running in the background, or web application that should not be restarted without any reason. So in those scenarios, we need IOptions snapshot and IOption monitor to read those values from the configuration. And particularly if I want to summarize, it would be that when over instance is of type scope or transient, which means every new request will have a new object of that service. Recommended way is to go with iSnapshot option. And if the service type is of singleton, which means only single instance will be served throughout the life cycle of the application, the recommended way is to go with IOptionsMonitor. And particularly in that case, we need to implement on change event as well to listen to those changes in that config file. So that was all for this video. I hope now things are more clear, and now we have more options to read configuration from the config file with .NET, particularly with .NET 2.0 and onwards, because those options were introduced in .NET Core 2.0 and still there and are very handy. In case of any question or queries, do ask me in the comments, and see you in the next video.